Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sujata, the Associate Director with Creating Values, and I welcome everyone for today's webinar, that is Quarantine Webinar, which will be led by IT leaders and subject matter experts on the topic Impact and Applications of Data Classification for Enhanced Data Security. A note to all the attendees who have joined us on YouTube, we will conduct a Q&A session towards the end of today's panel discussion. So if you have any questions for our panelists on this topic, please share your questions using the chat box on YouTube. On your behalf, I will direct those questions to our speakers. Alternatively, you could also send us an email with your questions. Another thing, please subscribe to our Creating Values YouTube channel. You will receive notifications about our upcoming webinars and about any other virtual events that we will be conducting in the time to come. So with that, let's start with a brief introduction about Creating Values. We are an ISO certified management consulting firm, and we provide strategic advisory services to organizations across industries. The domains in which we provide our consulting services include people and culture, which is our HR advisory arm, technology and risk is our IT consulting arm, business strategy consulting, brand strategy consulting, and executive search consulting. In 7 years of operations, we have completed more than 225 plus projects. We have worked across more than 15 industries, and we are proud to have a repeat order rate as high as 90%. If you have queries about any of our consulting domains, please feel free to get in touch with us. This is a general, one screen layout of the services that we provide in our technology and risk arm. So we can help organizations with varied kinds of assessments, with even cost optimization based projects, as well as compliance based interventions. So please get in touch with us and we'll be happy to walk you through our bouquet of services. A note about our upcoming webinar. Well, we have been conducting our webinars weekly, that is every Friday at 4 p.m. From now on, it will become a fortnightly affair. So our next webinar is scheduled for 23rd of October at 4 p.m. We will be joined by C-suite leaders, and the discussion would be on the topic of business outlook for 2021 and strategizing to gain competitive advantage. So please join us, make a note of it, and this will be a great opportunity to hear what CXOs, maybe CEOs, CFOs, COOs of varied companies are doing currently and what are they planning for 2021. So on that note, let's begin with our panel discussion of today. So our today's panel discussion is on the topic Impact and Applications of Data Classification for Enhanced Data Security. In today's security landscape, organizations' focus towards data governance is not just an operational necessity, but rather critical to organizational survival and profitability. Often firms invest heavily in data leakage tools. However, the key aspect to understand is that data classification serves as the bedrock for effective information governance strategy. So let's hear what industry and IT leaders have to share on this business critical topic. We have with us Mr. Prashant Sharma, who is head of IT at Fresenius Kabi Oncology Limited. He is also an IIMA alumnus. He has rich and diversified professional experience. As head of IT, he has been recognized for strategies adopted in security excellence and leadership. He's a progressive IT leader who has advocated the use of ERPs for even SMEs. His expertise lies in the areas of data security, data center security, network and firewall management, building IT strategies, and team management, to name a few. Our next speaker is Mr. Pawanpreet Singh Bhatia, Senior Project Management Cybersecurity at HCL Technologies Limited. He's a seasoned IT professional with expertise to lead assignments in IT service operations and infrastructure domains. quality-focused strategic leader managing global IT operations that include managing cybersecurity with GSOC services, security assurance services, vulnerability management for both infra and apps, SIEM tools, security incident management services across various locations. It is my privilege to interact with these esteemed panelists and to moderate today's session. I will now be directing some specific questions to our speakers. So I would request our speakers to turn on their camera and to unmute themselves. So my first question is common to both the panelists. We could start with Mr. Prashant. First hear his views on this and then move to Mr. Pawanpreet. Mr. Prashant, organizations and mainly the IT leaders have always focused their efforts on data security. What are some of the key interventions that have been implemented in your organization?
Yeah, so greetings to all. Greetings to Sujata, you and all the audience, who are right now listening to us. And thanks for inviting in this webinar. I think this is the wonderful thing you guys are doing today or these days. So coming back to question, following our initiative, which we have done, like first of all, we started from ISMS program. Not now, it's long back. Obviously ISMS is starting or having a base of data classification, even for the users also, giving a lot of trainings, providing those information about the data classification, securities, how to take care of the security in your personal area, your professional area, while you're in office, while you are at home. Right. So in this case, this is one. Second is we have very robust backup strategy, considering a pharma organization. Data integrity and data security is very, very important for us. So we can live with any downtime or business impact, but we cannot live without any non-compliance in data security, data integrity. That is the core area, or basically a challenge for our business, which we have to strive for. So basically, we have a robust backup strategy, which means having a lot of tools in place, having a lot of copies of data, so that at any disaster, whether it's a cyber attack or disaster, we are able to get the data back. Considering, because there might be industry who has the year of data. Okay, I can live with 10 years data, 8 years data, but considering the patent, considering this, product. Some products are available for 20 years, 15 years, so we don't know how long we need to keep the data. So that's why, and moving this to security part, that's why we need to have and ensure that the data is, secure and, available in that area. On the part of like having this classification, we do have certain processes in place. Also a lot of SOPs and processes by following which we follow this concept of need to know and minimum to have. As you mentioned already, like in the piece of area, we already have a GRC by which we are ensuring that the minimum authorization is being provided to users, so that the security of data is and the classification of data is maintained. So regardless to say, then we don't jeopardize or we don't get into it that the data is being viewed by unauthorized person. So this is my view on that part.
Sure. So Mr. Pawanpreet, the same question to you. What are some of the key interventions, security interventions with regards to data that have been implemented in your organization?
Sure, definitely. First of all, hello to everyone and hello to all the listeners, and thanks Sujata and to the Creating Values for giving this opportunity to express ourselves, because obviously we are all working from home nowadays because of the COVID situation. So it's hardly difficult to interact, face to face with the people, or sometimes it is more of the office meetings. But yes, definitely, it's a very key area, because in the current environment where I'm working in, this environment, basically, we just not deal with our own data, we also deal with client data. So for us, like, data protection is becoming bread and butter. If anything happens to the data, then probably client is going to sue us, and probably HCL is going to be in a trouble. So for a common man, or probably for HCL as a technology, so we take a lot of we do a lot of interventions, and we also comply with what of the client security policies that we have, and we also comply with our own security policy, because we have even bigger owners when we talk about HCL as a technology, how we comply, because we are the advisor to those organizations. That is why they have actually consulted with us, or actually involved us to handle their data or to manage their policies and procedures. For us become prima facie, kind of a more ownership kind of a role, that we ensure that their data is well protected and their data is in safe hands. And even when we are doing troubleshooting, or even when we are probably providing them any sort of infrastructure or application support, so their data is not going anywhere, and it's in the safe hands. And that is what every organization, so that basically leads to it's a sort of a planned governance that we follow within our organization, followed by various audit checks, and various, I would say, standards which are in place, because most of my clients which I work with within HCL Technologies are EU based clients. And for all those clients, I think GDPR is a mandatory kind of a thing, and we have to ensure that all the PII data, which is personally identifiable information, which is there, and all the critical and sensitive data which is there with us. And we are, because obviously when we talk about data, one part is that it's a very I would say virtual term, but when we talk about infrastructure as a part, so data is more about what we classified in terms of the assets that we have, where the data is residing, or probably data in transit. So the security interventions that we have implemented across our organization, we have a I would say dedicated GSOC center, which is a global security operations center, which actually takes care of the data. And we give assurance to all our clients that this GSOC center is basically going to do all kind of monitoring what is happening across. And we also ensure there is a rigid security incident response team is also available for any sort of, because even though implement all the policies and procedures, there would always be a data leakage, or there would be always be some sort of an attack followed, because there are a number of ports, and there are a number of applications, and there are a number of updates which are coming on a regular basis. Microsoft is launching so many things, so these things are actually giving a sort of an open door to all the hackers, or the gray hat or black hat hackers, or the people who have malintentions to kind of get into the organization data. So we ensure, and this is again followed by all the trainings that we provide to every employee who is joining the project, joining HCL. So he has to undergo a stringent training, and that too followed by regular workshops and CBTs, which is computer-based trainings, and certification examinations which they have to go. And those certifications will form part of our compliance audits. And each and every employee who is working, and their laptops, and followed by various other tools and techniques for data loss preventions, and also multi-factor authentication, privilege access management. All those things are basically, I mean, you name it, we have it. And because it's a technology company, so we have to give all the assurances, and we don't do any sort of in terms of cost cutting, in terms when the security is there. So security, because obviously the client are not those normal clients, these are all big giants, you name it, and we have it in our list. So obviously, so for us, the data security plays a very critical role. And with all these procedures and tools and the processes and the programs that we have within our organization, we give a lot of assurance to all our clients, and because of which we have repeat businesses also, just like you.
Sure. In fact, yes, even before we move on the topic of data classification, first of all, the context setting or the ground is that data breaches, which they have major implications when it comes to the business that you're in. I mean, the companies are in. So it is your brand that needs to be protected. It is the client data as well as the employees' data that you have to protect. A breach, and especially during COVID times, when people actually there are so many attacks that have been planned and have happened already, or might happen over the next 1 or 2 years, which makes it the most critical time to invest when it comes to data security. because it is the vulnerability of people and the heightened anxieties that is being attacked now. So these are some of the factors, and what you've mentioned, Mr. Pawanpreet, is absolutely essential. Go back to the basics. First of all, think about the policies and the procedures that an organization has in place, because these are the hygiene factors, something that an organization cannot do without and should not do without. So policies and procedures, your devices, what are the control mechanisms in place, the governing factors that you need to address when it comes to your compliance. And also one very critical part that you also touched upon was about user awareness. We'll come to that at a later part in our discussion, but it is a very important factor when it comes to data security. So with that, let's move to our next question. And our next question is for Mr. Prashant. Mr. Prashant, let's address the elephant in the room. So please share your views on the impact and the applications of data classification for enhanced data security. Mr. Prashant, you're on mute.
Sorry. So basically, when you say data classification, as we already discussed, data is having a very important role. Organizations like us. The classification basically help us managing the data well, and it also help us deciding a certain way when we are talking about a risk-based approach, when we are talking about building controls, when we are talking about sharing the data. It may be our external party, it may be our partner, So it helped us in a lot of places to make a decision easy. Second is the data classification is not basically a IT job, right? This has to be comes up with the department or the application owner or responsible for application or data. But this has to be basically driven down in the case that people understand that scenario. So when and generally companies when it's data or computer, it becomes IT, right? So that has to be basically transferred back, and maybe it can be user training, or it would be user training and a lot of awareness, workshops, communications. The data classification has to be in in the process by itself for the application or departments. So while generation of the data, it has to be started from the source. At the same time, when you are generating the data, that time it has to be classified, because classifying at the later stage is a big challenge. You don't know. People talk about DLP. We can go and implement DLP, but the problem we face with DLP is that what to allow, what not to allow. If you have a real classification, stamp on the data, then okay, this data is to be shared or data to not be shared. When we started this ISMS program, we started the journey of following a practice of marking each and every data, whether it's public, internal, confidential. So this makes it easy, because we have sometimes a partner also coming and working with us. And then as an employee, if the data is not classified, how the employee is aware that if I should share this data or not. If the data is classified, the employee is liable to follow that rule. You can have SOP, you can have policy. Yes, we have a policy. Internal data, confidential data should not be shared. But then when the data reaches to employee, does the employee is aware that this data is confidential or internal? Should I share it in public domain or not? So this has to be, obviously should be known by the data itself, that you are properly, rightly marking the data from the classification perspective. So it helps a lot, but the problem and challenge is that you have a lot of applications and a lot of layers of security and a lot of layers of data. How do the classification? Whether it's a raw data, whether it's a structured data. Yeah, structured data is still easy to do the qualification, but raw data, I don't know. It's again a challenge, right? I was talking about the backup strategy, right? You have a lot of data, you keep on, taking the backup, and then you end up, increasing your resources, time, money, value, all those things. But you have a proper classification, you can really go for, have a different strategy. Okay, this is my critical data, I need to take care in a different manner. This is my, okay, not that critical, then we can have a different approach. So following that, it is possible, or it's easy to manage the data in a better way when we have a data classification. And it also help us managing and maintaining compliance. For example, we have any audit coming up, and then auditor can ask, okay, why you share this data? Why are you sharing this data? So then, we have a clear guideline from the policy perspective, SOP perspective, and the data perspective. It's really matches each other and all together that we are following the complete path in terms of process. So that's where the importance of the data is there. The second is that when you have any cyber attack or any incident, then also you are aware the data was critical, and I should go for maybe recovery or maybe restoration, and then you can really compare the cost of recovery or restoration vis-a-vis the data cost. Sometimes we end up paying a lot of fee, a lot of cost when the value of the data is not that much. We have seen a couple of cases when we have cases of the loss of data for any reason. But then if you have a classification in a better way, then you can, as I said, the decision is easy to decide. So that's why classification of data is playing very important role, but it is not a easy exercise. Yeah, one has to work, or it would be basically a kind of drive we need to start and then continue at the end. And that's how this data classification should work.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Prashant. Mr. Prashant, there is a slight disturbance, audio disturbance at your end. Maybe by the time we come to you back for the next response, you could just check your
Okay.
connections and everything.
Yeah.
So like Mr. Prashant has rightly mentioned, data classification, the main thing is it is as simplistic as, if you're in a burning building and you had to evacuate it, what is it that you would save and what is it that you could leave behind? So that's the kind of similar analogy that can be used when it comes to your data. That is what data classification essentially is. With limited bandwidth, limited resources, limited budgets, what are the security measures that you would deploy for your highly critical and high business impact data versus the data which might already be in public domain? And like Mr. Prashant has rightly mentioned, what if you lose the data or there is a data breach? Then what is the measure? How much are you willing to spend with regards to the recovery of that data? Even those decisions can be based if you have a good data classification to start with. And data classification, although as a project, it would be the ownership of IT to implement it as a project. But when it comes to the usage, the overall implementation and the continuity of this intervention, that would reside with all departments that are involved and all the processes and users who are involved. So with that, I will move to my next question. And my next question is for Mr. Pawanpreet. Mr. Pawanpreet, do you think the efficiency of DLP tools relies heavily on effective data classification, and how?
I mean, this is a bit tricky question, I would say, because I would say that DLP tools and data classification, yes, I mean, obviously they both gel hand in hand with each other. I would say, because obviously if you have a better data classification in place, which is more about, as you rightly said, it's a sorting of data, what we actually need, what is more important to us versus what is not so important to us. And based upon that, we apply various policies and procedures, and, we have all the governance in place and things like that. So I think based upon that data classification and use of data loss prevention tools, or as you normally people say, data leak prevention tools, are basically they go hand in hand. And also these tools help us in various ways to help and protect our classified data when it comes to the compliance. When it comes to, because as I mentioned, as part of this organization, though I've worked in various end user organizations as well in my past, but with this organization, when you're mainly dealing with international clients, we have to really follow their compliance standards, which ranging from anything from GDPR to HIPAA to SOX and FISMA, NIST, and these are n number of compliance standards which we have to follow. So obviously, as an organization, applying DLP to these classified data becomes a very, I would say, intrinsic part of it. And based upon that, as Mr. Prashant also mentioned, that organizations also need to have very simple categorization of data, because based upon that, and it should be very employee friendly as well. because employees should easily be able to recognize that which data is what, because sometimes the use of right terminology within the organization helps a lot of things which could have actually breached a lot of things within the organization, or probably having more level of classification confuses a person. What should I do with this data? Is it really something which I probably need to send it, share it, or not to share it? And then he actually get back to the ISMS team or probably the information security team back, okay, should I be sharing this data? So that creates another havoc, what we need to do. So based upon that, I think the DLP tools which are really relevant for the data, and nowadays the DLP tools, I would say, are very smart. They are actually content centric. So if we have classified the data pretty well, so they actually pick up those meta tags and they pick up those keywords out of it, and they actually enforce various policies which have been used in or which have been configured in those DLP tools to protect the data pretty well. So if you actually categorize a particular data as sensitive data or probably a restrictive data, then they pick up those words, whatever you have as per your data classification. So they automatically stops anybody sharing that particular data or using any programs or softwares to probably share that data, or using, as somebody is trying to send that data outside via email or probably copying that data somewhere else on cloud or somewhere else. So this classification and DLP tools nowadays have really been advanced enough, and they are getting mature day by day, because many organizations, including ForcePoint, or probably we are using SolarWinds, we are using various other technologies which are there, endpoint protection, all these tools that are already there, and they are really good on the Gartner's quadrant also. So these tools are really smart enough to pick up those meta tags, and if we have classified them, only if it will work only if we have classified really well. So I think classification and DLP tools have a sort of an interdependency between them, and if it is done in a pretty well fashion, then probably I think it will help the organization to use these tools very efficiently. That's what I would say.
Certainly. In fact, that's the whole point, that, organizations end up spending so much of their, their budgets, their resources in state of the art technology, which is
Right.
not wrong, which is fine. But if you do not have your hygiene factors in place, then you would not be able to leverage the technologies that you have implemented. So
Right.
then everyone starts crying foul. Everyone starts saying that, we did not get the effectiveness out of a certain tool, or the ROI was not met. But
Right.
did you do the initial, bare essential steps the right way? Did you have a data classification strategy and a framework in place even before you went in and invested in DLP tools? So these are some of the essential questions, and like I mentioned, hygiene factors that organizations and IT leaders need to first focus on. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Mr. Pawanpreet. So let's go back to Mr. Prashant. And Mr. Prashant, a very, a question which is appropriate for current times. While budgets are being re-looked at due to this pandemic, how can IT leaders, make a business case for an important intervention such as data classification?
Yeah, so you rightly said it's a pandemic, but I would also say there is another pandemic going on with this corona pandemic, which is cyber attack, right? If you see really the cases, when the pandemic has started, there are big hike number of cases of cyber attack, be it a big IT company, be it any other business. I don't think there is any sector or industry remains without being impacted by those cyber attacks. So basically, the data security or information security becomes crucial in this case. Together with pandemic, as you already mentioned that budget is being obviously relooked at, or you got the message of this much percentage, okay, the cut. Now you need to manage it. So from my perspective, I think it is very important to keep the security part on the top in terms of budget. The point is here, like, we need to make a business case, whether it's a data classification or any other data security perspective. So considering this current cyber attack, right? Considering this class after the classification, which data we are talking about, and then we need to build up a case. It might also be possible, like we have been doing, or this year we have done it. So we need to, we may relook at our budget planning also, like the roadmap which we planned last year, the budget for this year, and there might be some part of items that we can say, okay, we just ignore them this year, we can go for next year. But it's a both way exercise. We need to work with the management hand in hand together. That one side we need to create a proper business case, considering or keeping those factors in mind on the table that are very critical for the organization in the current situation. One is that when there is a pandemic, you need to increase or improve the security when the people are working from home, people are working from remote locations. Obviously you need to have more security improved in terms of data backup. If it is office, a lot of people don't have maximum number of VPN connection. A lot of company suffers, and then they had to rush for increasing the number of VPN licenses. When you increase the licenses, then also you need to take care of the security, right? It is, do you have a multi-factor authentication enabled for the VPN user, or if not, is it a corporate device? It is a personal device. If it's a personal device, you have a problem. You might be able to allow the user working with the personal device, but then again you need to increase the security so that you are secure, your data is secure, you are not doing any compromise with your data security. So that's why considering all those cases, the business case has to be built. So as I mentioned, that there has to be two parts. One is that we need to really go and look at the business case, considering this priority and importance of the data classification security, because data classification is base, and then you can build upon the security. First the classification, and then security of the data, considering the level of the classification or the criticality, the level of security you can increase. And that will again help you manage the money better way, because if you don't do the classification, you just go and plan those budget for the devices or storage. So one example, right? People used to have a backup, right? Now there's a new concept. Okay, the backup should be the ransomware protected, right? The storage should be ransomware protected. Now you need to invest in those devices or hardware or those technology which are making you protected. You need to make the data available cloud. You need to make the data available at a different location. Obviously, you have to do the spending. You should have a budget available. So basically, making the classification, having your clear-cut action points in terms of data security. You need to have a look on the current footprint of the security, what all we have, and what is the need considering this current scenario or situation of cyber attack and pandemic. And then relook at your budget. How I was planning to spend the budget for this year. Yes, there are budget cut, but it's not like you got totally zero, right? If it is totally zero, then you cannot get the budget from the -1. You need to request your management to do that or make their budget available. But from the within the available resources, we have to do both things: business case, and second is this defining a budget strategy, like what I was planning to have it, doing the reprioritization of the budget. Security is an important factor which cannot be overlooked or which cannot be ignored right now, but there might be certain factors, like just take an example, equipment replacement. That might be few more months we can live on, but security may not be. So that's how we need to go for both ways, right? And that's where the one can create a business strategy or business case to go for those program and get the funding done or secure the budget for those activities or initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Prashant. Yes, rightly said. So a business case that can be created for such important interventions is when you talk about the actual happenings or the case studies, the statistics, the research which advocates about what has truly happened in the past, what is happening in the present times, and what are the possible cyber attacks that might be forecasted and which are being forecasted. So these things actually help organizations, especially IT leaders, to make a business case for interventions which are critical, such as data classification. The another way to look at it could also be, have a well, before I move to the next point, what Mr. Prashant said from that point itself, revisit your IT strategy roadmap. Look at your must-haves, your nice-to-haves. Maybe reprioritize. Look at what things can be put off for the coming financial year, and which are the business-critical things that need to be addressed right now. So that is another way to look at it, to make certain, to facilitate the movement of certain funds. But apart from that, the another way that I was, trying to touch upon a little earlier was that get a study such as business impact analysis done, so that at least have an identified or a structured scientific process in place, a thorough assessment in place, a report in place, which shows which are your business critical processes, which are your business critical departments. Maybe you could think about even data classification being as a pilot project. You could look at, instead of going pan organization, look at your business critical processes, and accordingly try to start small, build a business case around the success of the pilot project, and then go organization wide. So that is another format that business leaders or IT leaders can actually get the senior management to agree on important interventions such as data classification. And like Mr. Pawanpreet Singh also had mentioned earlier, you can have budget cuts for everything, but it should not be for security. So that is something that no organization should try to live without. So with that, I will move to my next question. And my next question is for Mr. Pawanpreet, that apart from investing in DLP tools and other technologies, can you just share your views on what is it that can be done when it comes to user awareness with regards to data security?
Definitely. And in fact, I was just thinking while we were all talking, and Prashant was also talking about it. So, COVID also seems to be a sort of acronym for data, which is like control vital data. So if you just kind of divide that into a way. So I think this COVID or the pandemic situation has given a lot of lessons to all the organization and way they are working nowadays, and especially when most of the organizations, or probably, in fact, I would say 90% of the organizations are working from home, and they have employees who they don't want to get rid of, and probably there may be a cost cutting also, but still they have all, because obviously employees are the assets of the organization and they really want to mind with them overall for the success of the organization. So having said that, I think security awareness during these days also becomes as important as it was under the pre-COVID days, because there, when people were coming to the organizations, we were easy to find people or probably get them to the workshops, and probably there were induction programs running in the organization. There were a lot of things. But nowadays, when the people are working at home, still the data security plays an important and a vital role. So we need to keep them informed about the the latest developments under the security, or probably give them a refresher, or any new person joining in the organization, how we should be able to get him involved into the security program of the organization, so that he is dealing with the employees' data, he's dealing with his own data, he's dealing with the client's data. So how he should be, and on the top of it, he is using the organizational facilities like resources, laptops, and other things. So we have to make him aware from top to bottom. And I think security awareness obviously is something which is, I would say, data classification is the base, and it is the base for anybody to probably understand what a security is all about, because security sometimes can be taken very seriously, or sometimes for the new, because HCL as an organization have all sort of employees. We have experienced employees, we have freshers, we have trainees, we have all the third-party contractors. We have various, I would say the whole, when we enter the HCL, it seems like the entire different world where you collaborate with all sort of people over there. So for us, like, security programs at all levels is very important. And this also comes a very important role when we do the audits, because I think we have to keep the records of all the security programs that we run for the employees, be it an induction program, be it CBT trainings and certifications. We have a specialized task task force who basically works on these kind of things, and basically they maintains the entire data, because this can be audited at any point in time within HCL as part of the internal audit, and it is also audited externally by any sort of ISMS audit or ISO 27000 audit. So these kind of things which become a very important thing for us. And we also do sort of a frequent flyer programs for a weekly basis or probably bi-weekly basis, many times depending upon what are the vulnerabilities which are coming up, so that people are aware of that this is something is coming up, and we inform the organization. And I think the best part of the thing is that we are using a lot of tools within our user devices, which actually give us sort of the compliance percentages which a particular device or an employee has if he has not done a particular training. So it's a very strategic way, or I would say we are very strict on that actually. So if somebody has not done a particular training, so his access would be stopped until and unless he completes that training, and then probably the next step would be taken. So for us as an organization, we take probably I would say my own example, though I'm into the security, and because there's a lot of work which is in the organization nowadays, we sometimes forget to do our trainings on time. So for the first 2 times I got the mailers from the HR that okay, I have not done this training, and the third time I was saying something is missing as an access which I used to have. So then I actually checked that this is because you have not done this certification, so that is why your access have been barred. So then I have to go back and do the certification training, understood, comply with that, do the examination, share my result to the HR, and then my access was granted back to me. So this is the level of user awareness importance that we spread across our organization, that everybody should take it very seriously. It is, and we provide them certificates probably, and HCL certificates matters a lot. And it probably give them a lot of awareness about the latest technologies. We also built in what's are the new cyber attacks, or I would say the new possibilities which can actually fall, and especially under the COVID situation. So I think user awareness programs, we really, and we also inform our leadership under the leadership workshops, because leadership sometimes, they are even more busier than us under the meetings and stuff like that. So they don't even get time to, so we ensure that they also get into all these awareness programs. We imbibe them, we involve them into our programs, and we whatever training sessions we have to do, their individual training session. I myself do a lot of training sessions for various application teams and the infrastructure team in order to be compliant, and give them a lot of inside knowledge of what as a cybersecurity we are upcoming, what is the new demand from the client, and this particular demand has to be completed. If it is a project-based surveillance or a project-based training that we need to provide, okay, client has asked something like a new project on the cybersecurity. This was earlier not there, but now in order to ensure that this has to happen, a sort of a frequent flyer training has to be given to each and every employee so that they comply with that. And of course, this is further linked to various certification and the compliance certification, which is built over HCL as well as the compliance. So if these things are not happening, then obviously we are missing on compliance, we are missing on security, we are missing on data, we are missing on almost everything, I would say. So employee being the key, but they are the most dynamic people on the earth. So we have to always keep them tied up with our trainings so that they don't forget things what we are happening. So that is why the user awareness program plays, I would say, a very highly vital role over here in HCL. So that's what my experience with HCL actually, and with my previous organizations, of course. But coming and working with an organization, an IT organization, it gives you a different, scope altogether. That okay, how we are. Earlier it was my data, my organization, but here it is like I am responsible for someone else. So you become, it's a sort of a responsibility that you kind of imbibe on yourself.
Certainly. In fact, what you mentioned is absolutely right. When it comes to user awareness, reinforcement, refreshers are of utmost importance. The irony is that it's that organizations invest so heavily in getting the tools and the right technologies in place, and they might spend as less than 2% of their budgets on actually user awareness programs, which is so unfortunate, because it's not that human beings are the weakest links when it comes to data breaches and data security. Rather, it could happen knowingly, unknowingly. It's not necessarily intentional.
Right.
It can happen. There is too much to be handled. The kind of data that even an average, a very simple frontline employee might have or might hold is humongous, and especially if it is the customer data. And if you look at an internal department such as HR, finance, they are holding the internal data of your employees, and even that is essential. That's critical. So that is why having a user awareness program which is structured is of utmost importance. Yes, have your e-learnings in place, have your trainings in place, give them certifications and all of that. So, you can have, bifurcate your user awareness framework into two parts. One is have a very structured, serious format, and have a structured and fun format. So we have actually engaged with so many companies, and even in healthcare sector, rather, we have engaged with hospitals and healthcare institutes, wherein the data security related awareness are being done in a fun manner. Using emailers, using very creative and colorful and fun digital emailers. Even the user awareness sessions that we plan with them, they are not a classroom training format. Rather, there is an open discussion. There is a case study based approach to it. Then there are real examples which are shared, something that might have actually truly happened within their own company or externally in their industry, so that it's easy to relate with. It's not, for a pharmaceutical company, I cannot give them an example of an automobile company, and then it wouldn't make sense to them. So that is how we plan the user awareness sessions. And whenever we plan these user and awareness sessions, our basic mantra is answer what's in it for me, for the user. Don't just tell them what is it that they need to do for the organization, but give them tips and tricks that will help them personally, secure themselves personally from phishing attacks, from several other data breaches that could happen to them on a personal front. The moment you answer that, they would take a responsibility on both fronts.
Absolutely.
So these are some of the ways of going forward. And with that, I will move to my last question for this panel. But this question, I'll keep it common to both the panelists. So we'll start with Mr. Prashant and then come back to Mr. Pavanpreet. Mr. Prashant, it's often the case that organizations are unaware of the risk around the data. In this case, how can CIOs or IT leaders make a business case for security programs?
So basically, yes, there are a lot of corners you don't know or you're not aware about the risk. If you go and start analyzing the risk, one that you already mentioned, you're gonna have a business analysis approach, business impact analysis approach. Second is you can just follow, okay, just do a VA or PT, but then you will have a bunch of risk, to fix it. You end up doing like say months and months and fixing that. So I would say that I think let's start from the basic, get the basics done for the environment, and then go for the best practice approach. So that at least we are able to, identify or fix, or without identify, we are fixing those risks for the data. Obviously, the program has to be driven and the business case to be prepared. But starting from the basics and then going for best practices, and then probably we can move further on going for now knowing the risk, following the programs like VA and PT. So for example, we have a regular practice of doing the VA PT, and earlier we used to do, let's say, once in a year, but now it's a regular practice. We run it weekly or bi-weekly, and so that we somehow, if there are any open port or open vulnerabilities, then we go and fix it. But it's a ongoing exercise, considering this lot of changes in technology. A lot of people are identifying the vulnerability because they keep on working on finding the vulnerabilities in those technologies or tools or systems. So basically, as we already discussed, this security programs are most important. The priority has to be high for those programs. So going that way, considering the security as an important factor, uh, setting the basics and then following the best practice, and then going for a risk-based approach. Probably, get the data covered from the risk. Though you cannot say, yes, I'm 100% secure, there is no risk. But then the approach has to be in such a manner that you really follow the risk-based approach. So being a pharmaceutical company, whenever we are even not only like going for security and going for any implementation, going for any change, we always follow the risk. So the risk assessment has to be prepared before doing anything. So there would be recommendation for action. Okay, this is what we are going to do. The second step would be, okay, what is the risk? Do the risk assessment, risk impact analysis, right? So risk assessment, then impact analysis. If there are identified risk, then we need to mitigate those risks. Whether it's a small change or is a big change, then basically we are fixing those without knowing the future. Obviously, you are other than human, not the god, that you cannot identify all the risk or so. But this basically fix the approach from the basic or from the source, that whatever you are going to do or implement, your risks are already identified and you are covering the risk already, from the day one. So this would be one. Obviously, then you have a lot of audit programs going on, the audit schedule considering. So for us, I think every month there is an audit, whether it's a regulatory audit, internal audit, a lot of audits. And then it is basically a good way to get this improvement and identification done for via the audits, especially the internal audits. Yeah, regulatory audits, you should aim for not getting those points or observations, but internal audit, it is really opportunity to do the improvement on your infra or your for the organization, whether it's IT audit or non-IT audit. So that's how you learn on those cases. So basically, the creating a program, these 3-4 parameter factors has to be considered, analyzed, and then the program can be move further to work in that way to create the business case.
Well, rightly said, Mr. Prashant. So one very nice point that you raised is that your internal audits can actually give you those opportunities to identify which are your risk areas, and they can help you build a business case and get your management, the business leaders aware about the kind of risks that you as an organization might be sitting on. Secondly, yes, have a risk assessment conducted, have your risk impact analysis done, so that these reports would always help you in having proactive measures in place for whatever risks have been identified. Obviously, like you mentioned, not everything could get covered. You might still end up firefighting at some point of time. Yes. So that's the time for certain reactive measures, but not everything can be reactive. So for proactive measures, it's always good to have assessments and studies done regularly so that you are aware about what is happening, what are the kind of changes, and what is the impact of those changes for your organization when it comes from a security perspective. So Mr. Pawanpreet, the same question to you. When organizations at times are unaware of the risk that they might be sitting on, what is the business case that IT leaders or security leaders can make for security programs?
Well, I would say HCL is in the business of selling to the customers, and they are really doing good on that. So obviously,
so maybe you can talk about giving an advice. Don't talk about HCL then.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not talking about HCL as of now, but yes, of course, when it comes to selling it to the management, because I've also been into the organizations where it's really difficult to tell organization, okay, why do I need this particular tool, or why do I need to invest in this? So obviously the management people, they basically want to know what benefit I will drive out of it. So that's the basic question they always have. Okay, so it is sometimes it is easy to quantify things, sometimes it is not easy to quantify things, because obviously if you talk about, okay, you can quantify an attack, you can quantify a particular data leak, or you can quantify, okay, these are the vulnerabilities which, okay, I've tried a tool and this came up as a vulnerability, or last few months we have got these attacks and now we need to imply a system. But still it is difficult, because I would say, as a mid-sized organization, or I would say, a specifically Indian organization which I worked with. So they always have this challenge, and these, the top shots, they basically want, they think that, okay, they have an IT team within the organization, and it means they're safe. And they kind of relate it, okay, when you are there, do I need to worry, and why do I need to employ these tools? I mean, these are the very basic questions which I got from CFOs, or probably so-called CEOs of the organization, because they think, okay, if you are asking for a budget of X million dollars, or like this much of that amount of money from me, so what I am going to get out of it? So it says, okay, for the security, okay, so if you say, okay, you're going to get a new laptop, they're still happy. So, okay, they get something out of it. But when you say, okay, there is something in the background I have to do in order to make sure that you have the robust systems in place, and your data is not being infringed, and nobody hacks your data, and we have all the checks and controls in place, and we are controlling the entire data and things like that. So they normally think this is your job, not my job. So it sometimes becomes very challenging, yes, but I think thanks to all the tools which are available nowadays, and all these tools which probably give you a right amount of analysis, and the right amount of threat points and the risks that we have within our system, talking about the network risk, talking about the data risk, talking about the application risk, talking about compliance risk, because obviously every organization somewhere or the other is compliant to some or the other standard, and that is the environment they are working in, and they have to comply with it. Talking about international organizations, and they are compliant to various standards like GDPR, HIPAA, SOX, FISMA, and things like that. So they anyways have to comply. So that is one mandatory thing which they have to do. So when it comes to mandatory, then obviously the organization has no reasons to say no for that. But something which is not so mandatory, and now we have a lot of tools available where we can show them by doing some sort of a vulnerability assessments within the organization, and see which application is vulnerable. Application scannings that we do data scannings, we do network scannings, we have a lot of port scanning available. There are a lot of organizations, because of the applications, they have got any to any ports open within their organization. So all these ports, all these analytics which comes into the play, and goes to the management in the form of reports, and basically we are able to quantify what is the level of risk we are in if we don't imply to these things, and if we don't do something about it. Then obviously nowadays I think it is fairly I would say not easy, but it's convincing to the organization to make sure, or the leaders of the organization to say that, yes, this is something which you need, and this is something which you cannot do without. If you're not investing on a very basic thing for an antivirus, and talking about the high level things of a privileged access management and things like that, then probably you are not safe, and probably it is difficult for them, for their own image, for the organization, because if they are secured, then only the customers will trust them, right? And the customers will come back to them, and for the repeat business, because customers also feel safe and working with these kind of organizations which have all the standards implemented, ISM is implemented, they're ISO certified organization, they are having security awareness programs, they have all the tools available. So my data, my emails, my entire infrastructure is safe when I communicate with them. So that kind of a reliability, and because that gives them a lot of assurance, because when we talk about security, it dwells around three main pillars, which are confidentiality, availability, and integrity. So if all these things, all these pillars are being met at some point in time, so obviously that makes an organization secure, and I think that is convincing enough.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Pawanpreet. So yes, two very important factors. One is that when you talk about compliances, there's no other way out. So if you have to be compliant for certain governing rules or data security laws, then yes, they have to be met. So that is one business case, and that's easier to get approval on.
Quick win. That's a quick win.
That's a quick win, rightly said. And the other format is, yes, IT leaders need to speak in business terms. They have to, not talk about IT or
Right.
about technology, but they have to talk about business. They have to talk about the value that will be derived or what would be the business impact. So, like you rightly mentioned, what would happen, would you lose customers? Or would your customers prefer a competitor over you because certain data security measures are in place or practices are being followed by that by the competitor? So you have to talk in business terms if that is the way to get them on board with you for such mission critical interventions such as business impact analysis study or getting a security risk assessment done or data classification followed by DLP tools. So these are some of the ways in which IT leaders can move forward in convincing the leadership about what needs to be done next. So with that, we have completed the structured questions that we had thought about for today's panel discussion on impact and applications of data classification for enhanced data security. We'll be soon moving to the Q&A session. So just a reminder to all of our attendees about our upcoming webinar, which will be conducted on 23rd of October at 4 p.m. And it will be conducted with CXOs from varied industries. And the topic of discussion would be business outlook for 2021 and strategizing to gain competitive advantage. Please register for this session and join us on 23rd of October at 4 p.m. So we had pre-received a couple of questions from the registered attendees. So I'll just, share those questions one by one. And I would request both the speakers to share their views on these questions. So we could start with Mr. Prashant and then move to Mr. Pawanpreet. Mr. Prashant, how can organizations measure the effectiveness of their DLP tools?
So basically, if you need to measure the effectiveness, you have to see what kind of, the data is going and coming by adding the monitoring, by creating a report, and then analyzing that factor. Because as we discussed, DLP is basically basis on the classification and all. So people, end up implementing DLP without the data classification or categorization. Then you have a lot of false positive. Then you have a lot of issues with that. As Pawanpreet mentioned already in this, discussion, that should I, how should we allow it? Go to the IT team, and IT team is also, checking that whether I should allow it or not. So if we go with this way, and we really, I would say first go for this monitoring mode and then go for the protection mode, and then monitor in the right manner with the reports and all, and doing the comparison, how many false positive we have, how the data is being, categorized or maintained with this DLP application, whatever we have implemented or in terms of technology. And that's where we can really maintain that. It should not be a other way around, that we implement a DLP and we end up spending a lot of effort just to, allow and take care of those false positive or the data which is coming in the DLP, or otherwise the business impacted. There should be some data, to be sent, it's being blocked by DLP. So the effectiveness is very important, and then this can be followed by following those processes of monitoring and getting a report and those ways basically.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Prashant. So, Mr. Pawanpreet, the same question to you also. How can organizations measure the effectiveness of their DLP tools?
I think, first of all, any tool that we use within the organization. So, first of all, it should be, matching to their internal security governance model which they have. I mean, in order to comply with that governance model, whether we are picking up the right tool or whether we are picking up something which probably can be a further burden on us later on. So that is something it has to be, it has to gel with our own internal procedures and internal classification. So secondly, we actually form a part of when we there has to be a lot of POCs that should be done, which actually give a proof of concept on what actually we are trying to control using those DLPs, and are we really those tools are effective enough to control, whether it's a cloud-based tool or whether it's an in-house tool that we are deploying. So that kind, and also, is that particular tool is not I mean, we try to do things good for the organization, but it should actually not do bad for something. Like, data is not always about security. Data is all confidentiality. Data is always about availability. A DLP tool should not just safeguard the data, but it should be available to the right person at the right time, right? And it should be available in the right form also. So that DLP tool should not protect the right person to access that data, because obviously that would also be against the security norms that we are following. So we and everybody has to perform their roles in the organization. So obviously the DLP tool effectiveness can be gauged from that angle also, that yes, that data availability is not compromised, data integrity is not compromised, and also and that can be fetched out of the reports that are coming, and also a lot of POCs that we do before we actually use a particular tool. And then based upon that, we have a lead time to kind of ensure that it is really effective to the organization, or is it not again protecting us from any sort of a compliance, because reports emerging out of those DLP tools again has to be audited and again has to be analyzed in terms of the compliance angle also. So whether that tool is is protecting me on the compliance angle also. And so all these things actually and along with what Prashant has rightly mentioned, that we should include as part of ensuring the effectiveness of these tools available, because there are a number of tools available. So not everything is good for us and not everything is bad for us. So that's what we need to go with it.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Pawanpreet. So the next question, again, first with Mr. Prashant, and then we'll come back to Mr. Pawanpreet. Mr. Prashant, how can IT teams justify the cost of data classification project?
Yeah. So basically, as I mentioned in my discussion, that it should not be only the IT, it should be with this the application or owner of the data also. The justification of the data classification, basically you can cover up from this security endpoint. As we discussed that we have to see the risk, what is the risk, and what are these critical factors coming up with that. Following your risk-based approach, business impact analysis, you have done. Obviously, the responsibility lies with IT or by application owner, but at the end, the drive has to run by the IT only. And
Yes,
the initiative.
But how can the costs be justified?
Yeah. So basically, when you go for the cost, I would go back and say when we play with the data, like you have a lot of chunk of data, when you manage the data, it makes you easy. We discussed that when you have a data classified, then it is easy for you to define your backup strategy. It is easy to define your other tools and technologies to manage in the right way, that you don't end up spending unnecessary on the data which you really do not need to provide that level of security. So basically, if it is a prime minister, obviously JET plus security. If it is a lower person, you can go for the lower security. So that way you get a lot of savings of the cost, that you don't follow the same process for all the data. And that's where the data classification help you save the cost and justify the cost for implementing the data classification.
Yes, rightly mentioned. So actually data classification can help with cost optimization. Yes. And, you do not need to safeguard 100% of your data. You do not need to deploy the best of your technologies on 100% of the data, but rather, as rightly mentioned, Z plus security for Prime Minister, so on and so forth. Yeah. So, Mr. Pawanpreet, the same question to you. How can IT teams justify the cost of data classification?
Yeah, though I'm not too much in favor of too much security to Prime Minister. So because we chose him, so he should be publicly accessible also. So so
No political discussions, please.
okay, yeah, that's fine. But yes, rightly said. I think justifying the cost is very simple because data classification is in itself a cost saver, as you rightly mentioned. So I think it justifies for itself that if we do a proper classification of data, then what we need to implement at what place, what sort of cost models that we need to implement, what sort of tools that we need to implement, it will be very clear and very precise for us. Right? If we have unstructured data and we don't have any classification, then probably we may be, protecting something which we may not want to, and we may be leaving something which we may really want to. So this is how data classification help us to kind of spot on the right areas and spot on the right the technologies that we need to protect, and in the interest of the organization, and in the interest of our clients, what we need to do. And with the proper classification, I think this is basically the need of any security model, or I would say base of any security model, which and basically that defines the risks that are associated to various data protocols that we have. So I think it defines for itself. I think this doesn't need any sort of more justification, because this is what an organization wants to know. What are we protecting, and why are we protecting? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Pavanpreet. So these were the couple of questions that we had received from our registered attendees for today's panel discussion. So with that, we are closer to a wrap of today's webinar. First of all, I wish to thank all of our attendees who've joined us on YouTube for the discussion. We would also be floating the recorded version of this panel discussion so that it can be distributed within the organization, within the internal teams, if any insights, observations, or case studies need to be pulled out from the discussion and need to be incorporated in internal discussions. So please wait for us to share the recorded version of today's webinar. And now I take this opportunity to thank both of our speakers, Mr. Prashant Sharma and Mr. Pavanpreet Singh. Thank you so much for giving us your valuable time. And not just that, actually talking about the interventions, the security measures that have been deployed within your respective organizations. You both come from very different industries. So obvious, but however, both industries are working towards data security and with complete consciousness. So thank you so much for sharing your own learnings, your own methodologies that are deployed, and some food for thought that you have given to the professionals who've joined us or who will be viewing the recorded version of today's webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sujata. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujata. Yeah.
It was really nice. It was a really nice experience today, and obviously we look forward to your future sessions also, and we'll look forward to listen to them, view them, and obviously these things are, while sitting at home, are really giving a lot of good experience to us as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. In fact, that was the whole intent of starting these webinars, that is, quarantine webinars. And we started with the topics which are, either from business strategy, which are from technology and risk, and which are from people and culture, because these are the major aspects that have been impacted by the current pandemic, and organizations are trying to work continuously to come out of whatever negative impact might have happened. So we will certainly float a list of the webinars that have been concluded and the upcoming ones, which as and when they are planned.
Sure, looking forward to it.
And thank you, Sujata.
Thanks to Prashant
also.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is Creating Values Webinar Fridays signing off for today. Thank you so much, all of our speakers.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Wish you the same.